My sister swore there was never a will. Not we're still looking for it. Not the lawyer messed something up. Just a clean, simple. There is no will. Dad never finished it. He told me to handle everything for the family. She said it from Dad's favorite armchair, still in her black dress, one hand on my mother's knee like she was the one holding the whole world together. My mom stared at the floor, twisting a tissue until it almost tore. My aunts and uncles were packed into the living room, nodding along, whispering things like, "She's so strong. Poor girl, taking on all this responsibility." I was on the edge of the couch, half in the circle, half out, staring at the carpet because it was easier than looking at her. I waited for someone to ask a basic question. No one did. So I took a breath and said as carefully as I could, "Did you talk to his lawyer? He gave me a card a while ago. He told me everything was on file." My sister didn't even look at me at first. She smoothed her dress, gave my mom's shoulder a squeeze, and said, "You must have misunderstood. There's nothing official. Dad told me he didn't want to make it messy with paperwork." Then she finally turned toward me, eyes red and glossy, voice soft but sharp. "Can we not do this right now? We just buried him." The room shifted. One uncle shot me a look like I just asked who got the TV. Someone muttered, "Don't start drama. Your sister's been handling everything." So I shut my mouth. Again. Back then it felt like I lost my dad and any claim to his life in the same week. No will. No lawyer. Just her word. What I didn't know was that the real will, with my name printed in black ink, was sitting in a drawer across town the entire time. My sister didn't earn the golden child title at that funeral. She'd been polishing it since we were kids. She was the kid with the perfect report cards and the teachers who pulled my parents aside to say, "She's really something special." Her drawings went on the fridge. Her trophies went on the mantle. Her stories got told at family dinners. I was the kid who made sure the dishes were done and the laundry got switched over. The built-in babysitter, the one who walked her home, the one who stayed behind to stack chairs after school events while everyone else took pictures with her. When something good happened, it was, "That's our girl. We're so proud of her." When something went wrong, the question came back to me. Why can't you be more like your sister? If she forgot a chore, she was tired from studying. If I forgot, I was lazy. If she snapped at Mom, she was under pressure. If I raised my voice, I was disrespectful. Over time, those comments stopped feeling like opinions and just became the truth everyone agreed on. She was the golden child. I was the reliable background character. The only place that script didn't fit was money. As adults, my sister burned through cash like it expired at midnight. New phone, new car, new trip, some urgent expense that always sounded suspiciously like shopping. My phone lit up with her name more times than I cared to count. "Can you cover me just this once?" Dad said he'd help, but it's easier if you send it and he pays you back. Meanwhile, I worked, paid my bills, lived in a cramped apartment that smelled like someone else's cooking, and tried not to ask anyone for anything. Dad never made some big speech about it. But every now and then when it was quiet, something slipped. One night, after she'd just left from asking him again for a little help, he sat at the kitchen table with his mug of tea, staring at the steam. Then he looked at me. "You're the responsible one," he said. "I know nobody says it out loud, but I see it." I shrugged it off like I always did. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a small white business card and slid it across the table. "If anything happens to me, call this lawyer. We've talked. I'm putting things in writing. I want you to be okay." I turned the card over between my fingers. Name. Firm. Phone number. Nothing fancy. "Like a will?" I asked. He gave a tired smile and nodded. "I've talked a lot over the years. I want at least some of it to actually count." I tucked the card into my wallet and for the first time in a long time felt safe. I might not have been the golden child, but at least I thought on paper I existed. I just didn't realize yet how easy it would be for one person's word to drown out ink. At least for a while. Dad didn't go from fine to gone overnight. It was a slow slide that everyone pretended not to see at first. It started with little things, getting winded on the stairs, forgetting where he left his keys, needing to sit down more often. Normal getting older stuff, according to my mother. Then the doctor visits started. I took time off work to drive him to appointments, sit in waiting rooms with bad magazines, listen while he tried to joke his way through blood tests and scans. My sister? She swept in at the last minute more than once, perfect hair, sympathetic smile, just in time for the doctor to walk in. She'd introduce herself, shake hands, ask a few questions in that calm, confident voice of hers. When the doctor stepped out, she'd squeeze Dad's hand and say, "Don't worry, I'll make sure they take care of you." To anyone watching, it looked like she was leading the charge. In reality, she just knew how to show up for the part that counted. Whenever I tried to bring up logistics, medications, bills, his work, his house, she brushed me off. "I've got it," she'd say. "You don't need to stress him out with details." It didn't matter that I was the one sitting with him during long waits, or sorting his mail, or picking up prescriptions. The family only saw what happened in public, and in public she was the one at his side. As things got worse, money crept into every conversation: hospital bills, insurance calls, questions about the house. One evening, after a rough week, I found Dad at the kitchen table again, a stack of envelopes in front of him. He looked smaller somehow, like the chair had grown. He tapped a letter with his finger. "I talked to the lawyer again," he said. "We updated some things." I sat down across from him. "What things?" I asked. He hesitated, then sighed. "The house. Some accounts. I don't want you ending up with nothing if something happens to me." He said it in a quiet, matter-of-fact way that almost didn't sound real. I reminded him. "You already gave me his card." He nodded. "He has everything on file now. There's a will. The house is supposed to be for both of you, not just one. And there are conditions, so nobody can just sell it and run." Relief and guilt tangled in my chest at the same time. Relief because he was thinking about me at all. Guilt because part of me was glad he didn't trust my sister completely. "Does she know?" I asked. He shrugged. "She knows I talked to a lawyer. She doesn't care about the details. She thinks things will always work out in her favor." He said it without anger, just resignation. Then he looked at me, eyes a little glassy. "Promise me something. If anything happens, don't just take someone's word for it. Call him. Go get the papers." I promised. I meant it. But as his health slid downhill, my sister moved into the center of the picture like she'd been waiting her whole life for this exact role. She started managing his appointments. She set up group chats with updates where I was always a step behind. She took over talking to the nurses, the billing office, the insurance. If I asked a question, she'd say, "I already handled it." If I suggested we sit down with Dad and go over his wishes together, she cut me off. He doesn't need that kind of stress right now. And if I mentioned the will, even gently, something in her face went hard. "Can you stop bringing that up?" She snapped once, outside his hospital room. "He hates talking about it. Just let him focus on getting better." Inside the room, she softened her voice again, smoothed his blanket, made him laugh. To the nurses, she was the devoted daughter. To the rest of the family, she was the one stepping up. To me, she was quietly building a wall between Dad and anyone who might ask the wrong questions. I told myself it was fine. I had the card. I had his words. Things were in writing. I didn't understand yet that paper doesn't protect you if nobody ever lets it see the light of day. Dad died on a Wednesday. The hospital room was too bright for that kind of news. Machines kept humming, monitors kept blinking, like no one had told them the show was over. My sister cried the loudest. My mother went very quiet. I stood by the window, staring at the parking lot, holding my phone like it could fix something. The days after blurred together, calls, paperwork, people dropping off casseroles we didn't touch. Every time I tried to sit with my own grief, someone needed a ride, a form filled out, a box moved. My sister floated through it all like she'd been rehearsing for this role her whole life. At the wake, she lived in the center of the room, accepting hugs, retelling the same story about Dad's last good day, wiping tears in a way that somehow made people love her more. I ended up in the corners, refilling coffee, picking up napkins, showing people where the bathroom was. After the funeral, when everyone had eaten just enough to feel sick, my sister announced there would be a quick family talk back at the house. Not a meeting about Dad's estate. Not the will reading. Just a quick family talk. We gathered in the living room. Dad's chair was empty, but somehow it felt like she was sitting in it anyway. My mom sat on the couch, small and folded in on herself. My aunts and uncles took the other seats. I ended up on the arm of a chair, half standing, like I was waiting to be dismissed. My sister cleared her throat. Her voice was soft and hoarse. I talked to everyone I needed to talk to, she said. The hospital, the insurance, the bank. I know it's not easy to hear, but there is no will. The words dropped into the room like a stone into a pond. Barely a splash. Just ripples. One aunt sighed. An uncle murmured, he always said he'd get around to it. My mom squeezed her eyes shut. My sister kept going. Dad told me he meant to do it, but he never finished anything official. He said he trusted me to handle everything for the family. That's what I'm going to do. My heart pounded in my ears. I stared at the rug, then forced myself to speak. He did talk to someone, I said. A lawyer. He gave me a card. He said things were in writing. Her jaw tightened for a second before she smoothed it away. I know you're upset, she said. But you're misremembering. I talked to the attorney. There was nothing valid. Just drafts he never signed. He didn't want things to be messy. She even used air quotes. One uncle frowned at me. If she already checked, then she checked, he said. Let it go. This isn't the time to argue. My mom finally spoke, voice thin. I don't want my children fighting over money. Your father wouldn't want that. Suddenly, I wasn't a person asking a reasonable question. I was the greedy one. The troublemaker. By the time she started talking about bills, property taxes, the mortgage, funeral costs she'd put on her card, the story was set. There was no will. She was carrying the weight. I was overreacting. The house conversation came later, in the kitchen. I was rinsing plates at the sink. She leaned against the counter, scrolling her phone. So what happens with the house? I asked quietly. Dad told me he wanted us both to have it. She sighed. The house is under a lot of pressure, she said. There are bills. Mom can't afford it on her own. We'll probably have to sell eventually. Eventually isn't the same as right now, I said. She pushed off the counter. Look, you don't live here, she said. You don't pay the taxes, the utilities, any of it. I've been the one managing things. If we sell, it's so Mom doesn't drown. I'm not saying don't help Mom, I said. I'm saying Dad didn't want me completely cut out. She gave me a long, tired look. You moved out years ago. You have your own life. You don't even like this house. That doesn't mean it isn't my home, I said. It doesn't mean I don't have a right to what he left. Her voice hardened. There is nothing official to have a right to, she snapped. You can stay a couple of weeks to get yourself together, but after that I need to figure things out. I can't keep carrying everything. On her way out, she patted my arm like she'd just explained something simple. You need to move on, she said. Dad would want that for you. I wanted to scream that Dad also wanted a will. That he wanted things in writing. That he wanted me to be okay. Instead, I slept in my childhood room a few more nights, surrounded by old posters, knowing I was now a guest in a place where my name used to be on the door. Then I packed my car and left, driving away from a house that was supposed to be half mine, feeling like I'd been erased from my own family's story. Time didn't fix anything. It just piled other problems on top. I rented a small apartment across town. Thin walls, old carpet, windows that rattled in the wind. I worked, paid rent on time, cooked cheap meals, brought leftovers to lunch, watched my bank balance crawl up and drop with every surprise bill. Life became a loop: wake up, work, home, sleep. Holidays got weird. The first Thanksgiving without Dad, I stayed home and made boxed mac and cheese because I couldn't stand the idea of sitting at that table with his chair empty and my sister in his spot. She posted photos anyway. Long captions about carrying on tradition, tagging relatives, smiling in the kitchen like nothing was off. In one picture, I could see Mom in the background, smaller, shoulders rounded, smile not quite reaching her eyes. Every now and then, a relative texted something that felt like a slap wrapped in cotton. You should be grateful your sister handled everything. At least the house stayed in the family. Family meant her. I tried to convince myself I was being dramatic. I had a roof over my head. I had a job. I had my own keys, my own bills, my own life. But whenever I reached into my wallet and felt the edge of that business card still tucked behind my ID, something twisted in my chest. I never threw it away. I just learned not to look at it. The crack showed up on a random afternoon in the most boring way possible: mail. I grabbed the stack of envelopes from my box and sorted them: junk, bill, junk, bank, junk. Then there was one I almost missed. Plain white envelope, official looking, my full name spelled correctly, return address I didn't recognize. Inside was a short letter from a company I'd never heard of, referencing my father by his full name. It mentioned previous attempts to contact you as a co-beneficiary of the estate, and records indicating unresolved distributions. My first thought was, scam. Everything is a scam until proven otherwise. But the dates lined up with the year he died. The account number matched a bank he actually used. And my address was correct. If there was truly no will, no estate, no nothing, why was I getting a letter that treated me like I had a share? I set the paper on the table and stared at it. The knot in my chest tightened, then shifted into something else. Not grief. Not jealousy. It felt like confirmation. Like the universe quietly saying, "You weren't crazy." That night I pulled my old wallet from the drawer under my bed. In the back slot, behind old cards, was the business card. Same plain white background. Same black letters. Same name and number. I sat on the edge of my mattress with the letter in one hand and the card in the other. I thought about Dad at the kitchen table, sliding the card to me. His voice. "If anything happens to me, call this lawyer. I want you to be okay." I thought about my sister's face when I mentioned it after the funeral, how fast she'd shut it down. For years I told myself digging into it would only create drama. That staying quiet made me the bigger person. That asking questions would make me look greedy. Holding both pieces of paper, that logic suddenly felt very thin. Maybe she had talked to the lawyer. Maybe she hadn't. Either way, the only version I'd ever heard had come from her. I pulled out my phone, typed the number from the card, and hovered over the call button. My hand shook. My chest felt tight. Part of me still wanted to be the easy child, the one who didn't make waves. But another part of me, the part that remembered every time I'd been told to be more like your sister, was done being edited out. I hit call. The line rang once, twice. A calm receptionist answered, gave the firm's name. "Hi," I said. "My name is your name. I think your office handled my father's will a few years ago. I was told there wasn't one. I just got some mail that makes me think that might not be true." There was a pause. Keys clicked. Papers shuffled. Then she said a sentence that made the whole room tilt. "We've actually been trying to reach you. Do you have time to come in and talk to Mr. Lawyer's name about your father's estate?" For the first time since Dad died, I felt something like solid ground under my feet. It wasn't justice yet. It wasn't revenge. It was something smaller and sharper. Proof that the golden child's version of the truth might not be the only one that counted. The lawyer's office was quieter than I expected. No chaos, no people yelling into phones. Just a receptionist with a neat bun, a tired plant in the corner, and that faint smell of paper and old coffee. I gave my name. She typed for a second, then glanced up at me like something just clicked. "One moment. Mr. Harris will be right out." A man in his 60s came out a minute later. Slightly wrinkled suit, reading glasses on a cord, the kind of face that has seen a lot of bad news and paperwork. He looked at me properly and his expression changed. "You're your name," he said. "Your father talked about you a lot. I always wondered why you never came in." My throat did that stupid tight thing. "I was told there wasn't a will," I said. "That there was nothing to come in for." His eyebrows went up, not dramatically, just enough. "Let's sit down," he said. We sat across from each other at his desk. He pulled a thick file from a drawer, my father's last name on the tab in neat black letters. "Tell me what you were told," he said. So I did. The family talk after the funeral. My sister saying there was no will, that Dad never finished anything. Her claim that she'd spoken to the attorney and there was nothing valid. By the time I finished, my hands were locked together in my lap. Mr. Harris let out a slow breath and opened the file. On top was a typed document. He turned it toward me and tapped the first page. My father's full name. Last will and testament. A date. He flipped a few pages, then tapped again further down. My name. Spelled right. Sitting there like it had been waiting for me the whole time. Your father signed this here, he said, pointing at the signature I'd watched 1,000 times on permission slips and checks. In front of 2 witnesses. We updated it a little over a year before he passed. He walked me through the important parts without fluff. The house was in a trust with both our names on it. It couldn't be sold for a certain number of years unless we both agreed in writing. Our accounts were divided clearly. There was a cash amount set aside just for me. He tapped that clause. He was very clear about this, Mr. Harris said. He didn't want you to feel like the outsider anymore. Those were his words. That one hit harder than the numbers. It wasn't just about money. It was him admitting he'd seen it, the way things were tilted, the way I'd been sidelined, and trying to fix it in the only way he knew would stick. She told everyone there was nothing, I managed. She said you said that. His jaw tightened a little. I never said that, he replied. What actually happened is this. After my father died, my sister came to his office alone. No mom. Definitely no me. She told me, he said, that you knew all about the will, that you didn't want to be involved in any formal process, that the family would handle things privately. He did the air quotes. It made my stomach turn. She asked for a copy, which I'm allowed to give a named beneficiary. I gave her one and told her to arrange a reading with everyone present. No one ever called. Instead, we started seeing title changes and transfers that don't match this document. So she hadn't just lied by omission. She'd walked out of this office with a signed will in her bag and treated it like scrap paper. I sat there, staring at the pages. What does that mean legally? I finally asked. Plain English. Plain English. He repeated. It means you have a valid will. You're a named beneficiary. And someone has been moving assets around as if you don't exist. He kept it simple. Hiding a valid will is not a family misunderstanding. Selling or transferring property that belongs to a trust is not a small detail. Ignoring another heir can get very expensive very fast. If we push this, he said, it won't be fun. It will take time. But you are not overreacting. You are not making this up. I stared at my name on the page again. Did I make it easy for her? I asked. By staying out of it? He shook his head. You trusted your sister, he said. That's not a mistake on paper. What she did with that trust might be. He slid a sheet of paper toward me. First step, he said, is a formal letter. We lay out what the will says, what actually happened, and what you're prepared to do if she doesn't fix it. My heart was pounding, but for once it wasn't from shame. It was from finally having something solid under my feet. The letter went out 2 days later. 4 pages. Calm tone, sharp edges. A copy of the will attached. Dates, transactions, property records listed one by one. It gave her a choice. Either she sat down with us, returned my share, house, money, whatever she'd taken past her portion, and signed new documents with my name where it belonged. Or she could explain herself to a judge, along with bank statements and interest. We sent it by certified mail. Emailed it. Faxed it for good measure. She didn't call Mr. Harris. She called me. The 3rd time my phone lit up with her name, I answered. No hello. What the hell are you doing? She snapped. You sent me a lawyer? I took a breath. Dad sent you a lawyer, I said. You just pretended he didn't exist. She let out a short, humorless laugh. You're trying to ruin me, she said. After everything I've done. I took care of Mom. I took care of the house. Dad wanted me to have it. You're just jealous. The word jealous landed like it always did, like I was a kid again, being scolded for wanting something that was supposedly hers by default. This isn't about jealousy, I said. It's about the will you hid. It wasn't that simple, she shot back. There wasn't enough for everyone, not with the medical bills, the mortgage. There was enough for what he wrote, I said. You just decided your version of what he wanted mattered more than his signature. Silence. I could hear her breathing through the speaker. You're really going to take me to court? She asked finally. Over a house? There it was. The line she thought would scare me back into my corner. I looked around my tiny apartment at the chipped paint and the second-hand furniture and thought about the house that was supposed to be half mine. The trust. The accounts. My name, right next to hers. I'm not going to court over a house, I said. You didn't just take a building. You took everything he tried to put in writing and acted like it didn't count. Her voice dropped. If you do this, we're done. You won't have a family left. I didn't even have to think this time. You made that call when you pretended I wasn't in that will, I said. I'm just finally treating it like it happened. We did end up in a room together once after that. Neutral conference room. Long table. Too much glass. She brought her own lawyer, he already looked tired. Mr. Harris had the will laid out in front of us with extra copies. He walked through it line by line. The trust. The house. The accounts. The condition about not selling without both signatures. Every time she tried to jump in, he lifted a hand. Your father first, he said. Then you. By the time he finished, she was staring at the table. Her lawyer leaned in and whispered to her. I didn't catch the words, but I understood the message. This is not a hill you can win on. She didn't apologize. She didn't break down. She adjusted. We reached a settlement. The house was finally tied on record to the trust with both our names, the way it was supposed to be from day one. A chunk of what she'd pulled from the accounts came back to me over time with interest. New documents were signed. Files updated. Records corrected. No dramatic courtroom scene. Just signatures, initials, and a quiet shift back toward what my father actually wrote. Paper fixing what talking had broken. The story didn't stay secret for long. At first, she tried to spin it. I was suing her over nothing, twisting Dad's words, obsessing over technicalities. Then a couple of relatives saw the will. They saw my name. They saw the part where Dad said he didn't want me to feel like the outsider anymore. No one showed up at my door with a speech. But the way people talked about her changed just a little. The automatic praise, the she always does the right thing, didn't roll off their tongues as easily. Golden children don't lose their crowns overnight. But hers definitely slipped. She still thinks she's the hero of this story. I'm sure in her version I'm the ungrateful sibling who made it all about money. She can keep that narrative if it helps her sleep. Because in the version that actually matters, the one with signatures and dates and witness lines, we're on the same level now. Not because she had a change of heart. Not because the family suddenly woke up. Because I finally did the one thing she never thought I'd do. I stopped trusting the story and started trusting the ink. I read the fine print. And this time I refused to disappear. In the end, it wasn't about the money. It was about not letting my name disappear. If you've ever felt like the invisible one in your family, hit like and subscribe to Family Inheritance Revenge. Next up, I took care of Dad for years. My brothers tried to cut me out. I'll see you there.